Hey everybody, welcome to the Abbott's Address. Today is Thursday. Let's see what the date is. January 12th, 2017. So a number of folks have asked me to speak about the repercussions when they tell their family, guess what? I'm becoming a Buddhist. I'm taking Jukai, or I'm thinking about taking Jukai, taking the precepts and actually becoming formally recognized as a Buddhist. I'm really excited about it. And then the family says, oh my God, you've joined a cult. And like, boom, there's just stop. So what to do with that? Okay, well, it's very tricky because the fact is that, well, if you have an internal resonance with the Dharma, it's almost impossible to stay away from practice. I mean, you have to work really hard. Once you have the internal kind of intelligence for it or resonance with it, or you get it, I mean, however you want to say it, when you've got that thing, the contemplative intelligence might be a way to say it, whatever it is. When you've got that thing and you encounter the training, then it's like, whoa, and it might take a while to process the whoa, like okay, I want to do this for real, or it might be immediate for you. So that's very compelling, right? And then at the same time, you might have people in your life that do not have that same kind of contemplative intelligence, or whatever you want to call it. And then they're going, whoa. And it's a totally different whoa, right? It's not the same at all, right? So the first thing to realize is that you need to really, I would recommend that you really honor your internal wisdom and truth. Trust yourself. I mean, above all, that's the big thing. And really, taking Jukai is about yourself taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha as it is shaped and expressed in the Great Heartland Sangha community. See, that's what's going on, right? So it's a really deep thing, and it's about taking the vows to lead your life in a way that is ever more directed towards compassion in the world, and alleviating of suffering for yourself and others, and actualizing good where it isn't there already, and furthering the good that is there right now. See, all of this is about the relief of suffering. See, so rationally and objectively, okay, most people who hear the idea that you're committing yourself to a life of compassion, or an intention of vow towards compassion and alleviating suffering, it's going to be it's kind of a hard thing to say, oh, that's a terrible thing to do, don't do that. Usually that's not what they're meaning. What they actually mean is they're scared for you, right? They care about you, which is something to notice and be grateful for, right? Be grateful that your parents, let us say, your parents or your spouse or whoever it is, your kids, be grateful that they care enough about you to actually have an opinion and to be concerned for your safety. And look, let's be real clear about it. Religion is probably the easiest way to get good people to do stupid stuff, right? I mean, it's an innate drive. I say the religious or the numinous impulse is an inherent aspect of the human psyche, like sexuality and food and becoming a part of a group, this kind of thing. And so there are plenty of examples where it actually, you really can get hurt by a real cult, and they're terrible, and good to be aware of it. Keep both eyes open, and But how would you know if something was actually a true cult, like for real, right? Well, one of the ways you would know is there's this intense secrecy around everything, okay? There's this big wall between those who are in and out, and there's this unique quality that a cult, a true demented mess with you kind of cult will have, is that you can never leave. You can never leave, see? So once you come in, there's all kinds of ways of kind of taking the person and kind of webbing them into the structure so that they're literally afraid to leave. So if they leave, there's not only just the immediate social consequences for them, but perhaps immortal or eternal consequences to leaving. The aliens are coming, and if you're not, underneath my beard, they won't let you in, and so come here, it's all this, stuff like that. See, so now in contrast to that, The Great Heartland Sangha has a huge, wide open door, and folks are super welcome to come in and see what's going on and visit and meet the people, smell the incense, taste the tea. It's all good, and people are welcome to decide, this isn't exactly what we want to do or the way we want to do it, and go on to whatever is the better fit for them. See, so there's no friction there on either way of the door moving, and that's a particular point of I think my embassy or the teaching or whatever. If someone feels like they want to come in and explore this, I'm grateful for that and I trust them. And if someone feels like they don't want to do this anymore, then I trust them still, and I trust them in that decision. See, so that's totally fine. Another thing to say is that the tradition is 2,600 years old. See, and that there actually is an authentic transmission of the Dharma from student to teacher to student to teacher. As far back as history will allow us to guess, at least 1,500 years, maybe the whole time, hopefully some mix, who knows. But this is not just some new kid on the block here with a UFO crystal theory or something. I mean, this is a long-standing tradition that is authentically held in this community, you see. So I would, if they're open to it, I'd recommend my teacher, James Ford. I'd recommend his book called "If You're Lucky, Your Heart Will Break" by James Ford. If you get them a copy of that and send it along to them, a lot of times what I hear back is people voraciously read these things because they're trying to figure it out. And so they look on the interweb and they try to find information, and who knows what they're running into. But that's my teacher's book. And if they read that and they feel like, okay, you're going to burn in hell, then, well, okay, you know something about how they're thinking. If they're rational and objective and they read that, then they'll be like, okay, this sounds like there's some checks and balances on power here and all this kind of stuff. So that's the deal. Hopefully what happens is that if not immediately, which probably is not likely, but usually over time, what happens is that the mature practitioner over time keeps showing up in kind, loving ways. Be present for those folks in your family in a really intentional way. Do not quote Buddhist stuff or get all zen-y about things or anything like that. Just be like super duper normal for them, right, as they want you to be, and be that with joy and with grace. Show up, go fishing or whatever it is that y'all do, and have a good time with it, and love them. Love your folks or your spouse or your kids, obviously. I mean, whoever it is, that's concerned about this, love them like really intensely, even in the midst of their not necessarily understanding this. See, and then as time wears on, a lot of times the concern wears thin. It's been proven. It's rather like perhaps you fall in love with and marry a spouse, a partner that, let us say, your mom or whatever, your dad or your uncle or somebody just doesn't like. They don't like it. They don't like it. They don't like it, right? And so you marry the person and you're really happy about it, and then they don't like it and they think it's a big bad decision and you've done the wrong thing. And then, okay, a year later, the arms are still folded. 3 years later, the arms are still folded. 5 years later, the arms are still folded. But you know what? 20 years later, okay, you're happy together. I give up. Maybe it's like that. That could be too. So there's been lots of folks that get into practice. There's resistance, and then somewhere time later, the resistance is just like, who cares about that anymore? Obviously, it works for you. I'm happy for you. So that's a big thing. See, and then ultimately, if it's not about concern for you, then it's about protecting their own self-identity. And that's a whole different animal, okay? Or maybe it's a little bit of both kind of mushed in there. But a lot of times, if you make a decision that contradicts the assumptions that run inside the worldview of the person you're talking to, then for you to be right makes them wrong in their mind, okay? In their mind. So sometimes people cannot cognitively, they cannot accept that what you're doing is good, because if they accept that, what that means is their entire identity is skewed somehow or not right. And that usually depends on them being in, and this is where it comes kind of full circle, a cult. Even if it's a huge denomination that's well respected in the world, culty behavior means you can never leave remember? And there's no salvation or enlightenment or whatever, no trip on the UFO without being in this group. Okay? Now, if somebody's in a very mainstream, culturally accepted religious practice of whatever kind, but in their own head they've got that kind of culty view about it, then if you are, and they love you, but if you're in this other thing, then for them to acknowledge that means that they might be in risk or in jeopardy, see? And so that's just too bad. That's a tough one. That's a really tough one, because now that person has to grow out of that cocoon, and they may or they may not, and that's not your job, and it's not up to you, and you can't make that be the case. But regardless, you can always stay present with the person and stay loving with the person and listen to them and just relentlessly use them as a point of your training and your practice. And ultimately, okay, each of us dies our own death. Each of us lives our own life, and we must trust ourselves beyond everything. Trust yourself, trust your intuition, trust your logic, trust your reasoning, trust your body, you know, and then we can know how to proceed. So, good luck. In announcements, what I have to say is we've got Sesshin coming up next week. Starts on Thursday. I am super ready for some Sesshin time. Looking forward to practicing with everybody. And also this Sunday, we have the second of 3 mindful activism workshops. This workshop is going to focus on compassion. I think last time we had 150 or some folks show up. It was a great event. I had a great time. Dawn had a great time. A lot of good feedback. And we're going to take it to the next step and to the next level. This Sunday, that's this evening, starts at 7 o'clock. Okay? Morning service as usual at 11. I think there's an orientation to Zen Buddhism and the Great Heartland Temple, some title like that, orientation thing at 2 this Sunday. Mindful Activism Workshop is at 7, and then Sesshin begins next week. Okay? And we're in the middle of the Canvas, the annual Canvas. Get your membership in, and that's what keeps all of this stuff going, folks. We're deeply grateful for the amazing response we've had so far, and I am deeply grateful to the Leadership Council for really rolling this thing out in such a beautiful way. Thank you, everybody. It's really meaningful.